He is here in person and giving us details on the ATB Storyteller series. It's at the National Music Center, a great series. Tegan and Sarah did it. You're in great company in that, some great Canadians have been a part of this series. And Cardi will be hosting on Friday. That's nice. Good morning to you, by the way.
Good morning.
Not tired whatsoever. You've been traveling like crazy. So.
Well, I'm less tired than the last brown guy that was in here. He was probably up all night. So
he had a long night.
This is pretty incredible, and obviously to be able to do it with Cardinal, who's a great friend. We've collaborated on a bunch of records together, and I kind of grew up. There were so few kind of hip-hop, pop, Caribbean influences to look up to in Canada.
Totally.
That Cardi was such an influence for me in my music, which is definitely steeped in all those things.
Right.
That for us to be able to do this together is pretty cool.
Absolutely. 7:30 p.m. at the National Music Center this upcoming Friday. Does it make you look back on your career and try to kind of highlight moments in your mind?
Yeah, it's both wonderful and kind of depressing. It feels like a greatest hits album.
Right.
But I think we're just going to talk about, the aspect about it that's pretty cool with ATB is that it's about how you conduct business in the new music industry, which is something I think our industry's gone through such a paradigm shift. Unlike a lot of other industries, it hasn't stayed linear for the last 4 or 5 years particularly.
Right.
How streaming's hit us, how lots of us are independent, and sometimes do better independent than signing to major labels. So we're going to discuss all that and talk about the new business model in the music industry and just my successes, my failures, and everything that I've done over the last decade.
Right, and not only are you a talented musician, you have to be talented in business as well to be able to succeed in a global market. And we were speaking off camera about some of the biggest markets for you being the UK and, outside of Canada, although you have a Canadian following. So how do you tackle this moving forward in terms of being in a streaming world? And you were saying it's primarily driven by singles and not by albums.
Well, I'm doing the exact opposite. I'm going to put out an album.
Right.
So the one thing that I have learned is that you can overthink it and that great music just finds a way to translate and people scoop it up. So just write great records and take your time with it, I feel there's so much pressure on artists these days, particularly ones that are already at radio, to deliver timely singles rather than great singles and great records. So I hope that the music that I release over the next few months, people feel is indicative of someone that took their time to make great music.
Okay, so speak about that decision to release an album. Was that a conscious decision? You had it in you and you wanted to present a full album?
Just so much material that I thought everyone's doing an EP, and I have such a wonderful and loyal fan base around the world that I thought I have to deliver more than just the EP, which ends up being half the singles you put out anyway.
Yeah.
So I wanted to deliver a full album, and particularly because there's so many genres that influence my music. In order to kind of touch upon them all, it does need to be an album and not an EP.
Right, and the pop world has changed a lot since you entered into the field, and there's a lot more hip-hop influence, you were saying, now in the top of the charts.
I was looking this week, and it's like Bodak Yellow's #1, Post Malone's in the chart, so I feel like there's a hip-hop renaissance. Hip-hop's never gone away.
Right.
But I just mean in terms of like top 40 pop, so that bodes well for me. I grew up loving and listening to hip-hop. I'd love to hear Cardi's take on that.
Right, and for you, was there, growing up in Calgary and having music in your blood, was there a sort of a moment when your career was beginning where you thought, okay, now I've made it, I've got this? This is success for me?
I think for me, I'm back in Calgary, and obviously I'm always going to be a Calgarian. But moving to England was really a moment for me because England was going through a period of time where they were fully accepting, like they do the Latino culture in the United States, full kind of amalgamation of South Asian culture in the British diaspora, if that makes sense. So Goodness Gracious Me, which was a huge comedy hit, was kind of like a big show on the BBC, the biggest since Fawlty Towers. It was South Asian inspired.
Right.
And I started to feel like, oh, you know what, I don't have to hide that side of me or change my name or do a bunch of things to kind of circumvent what my background is. I can actually be who I am. And it kind of gave me a platform to launch and do that I'm able to still do today.
And do you feel like today, more than ever, you can be yourself and confidently step forward?
Well, sure. Now that, half the stuff you hear is released independently. It's from artists who bank their own stuff and release it independently. So that means that I can really do what I want. So it means that my successes are mine, as are my failures.
How does the new material sound? New single coming out on Thursday.
It's really reggae inspired. I did the next single that comes out on Thursday is produced by Stephen McGregor. For those that listen to reggae music, he's Freddie McGregor's son. He produced on the Drake record, and he's an incredible talent. And it's called Nothing But Love. It's out Thursday. So a lot of reggae influence in that, which is great because Cardi's here this week.
Yep.
And the album's all over the place. It's like It's like an inch deep and a mile wide.
Wow.
It touches jazz, R&B, soul, pop. So hopefully people dig it.
Okay, we look forward to that in January. New single on Thursday, and this upcoming Friday, you can see Raghav with Cardi at the National Music Center. It's the ATV Storytellers series at Studio Bell Friday at 7:30 p.m.